Welcome to the Blake Talks Good podcast. I'm your host, Blake Jennings, the founder and president of OnRamp, a nonprofit that has gifted reliable vehicles to hundreds of families in need to help them on the road to self-sufficiency. This podcast is designed to help you maximize the good that you do in your community among the poor, the vulnerable, or those in need, whether you're an individual or part of a church, charity, or any other organization. In this episode, I want to answer one of the most important questions that I am asked by individuals and churches, charities, ministries that are trying to do good and help people who are in need, who are vulnerable, poor, sick, whatever the reason might be. That question is, how do I measure success? How do I know if this good deed that I was doing, this good ministry, this good program actually was successful? I love when I'm asked that question because so many people never think to ask it. So many individuals and organizations, especially those that are faith-based or religiously motivated, they think that just doing the good thing in and of itself is proof of success. If they gave to the poor or donated time for a soup kitchen or went and did this thing, they gave something of theirs to someone in need, then that act is proof that they succeeded. That is enough. That is sufficient to show that they were a success. Now, here's the deal. I want to be clear that doing the good thing is good. When you gave to the poor person, when you volunteered at the food bank, when you gave your time to help a neighbor in need, that was good. That's wonderful, especially if you're trying to follow Jesus or do a part of your faith. That is a wonderful thing. That's good. But here's the deal. I want to push you to go further. I want to inspire you and compel you to actually ask yourself, was this good thing that I did, was it actually successful? Not from my perspective, not in the sense of making me feel good or meeting some need that I had, whether religious or personal or patting myself on the back, but was it actually good for the person in need? 'Cause that's what actually matters. Like, it's not about you. It's about the person or the group or the family you're trying to help. Did it actually help them in a long-term view? Not just instantly, but in terms of their long-term good. Did it work? Was it successful? The reason that I'm harping on this is so many people don't ask. So many organizations don't ask. And what they don't realize is if we are not careful, our good deeds can actually go bad in the life of the person that we're trying to help. Our charity can turn toxic. There's whole books written about this because it is such a common problem. There's a book called Toxic Charity, another When Helping Hurts. There are so many examples of individuals, churches, charities, ministries, nonprofit organizations that go into a place and try to do a good thing and feel good about it. It's really, they are well-intentioned. They are pure of heart. They try to do this good thing and it actually turns toxic and does more harm than good in the long-term life of that community. There's whole books and research studies of a very common thing that happened decades ago. I hope it's not still happening, but it probably is, of Western organizations, religious organizations, churches, also secular NGOs and government organizations from the Western world intervening in Africa amongst poverty and starvation and trying to do good. And they had great motivations. Let's go into this country, into this town, into this family and do this good thing. We're going to feed them, or we're going to give them money, or we're going to help build their business, or we're going to drill a well for them, or whatever it might be. And sometimes it was a good thing that worked out for good, but sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it was a good thing that actually went bad and did more harm than good. We have classic examples of these charitable interventions ending up driving corruption in the government of that place, or ending up building a harmful dependence within the culture, or actually putting out of business local businesses that were trying to meet that need. And then this Western NGO comes in and puts them all out of business. And there are so many examples of charitable interventions doing more harm than good. And that's true at like the nation level and the people group level, but it's also true on the individual level. I'll share a painful story from OnRamp. From our history, we gift vehicles, like I said, to families in need to help them on the road to self-sufficiency. So we once gifted a vehicle to a young woman, a single mom who had just had a baby, who was in a home for foster kids. So she had come out of a really bad, really destructive foster situation, brought into this home where she was loved and cared for like 18 months, and she had her baby, and things were just really coming together for her. And so that nonprofit nominated her to us to receive a vehicle so that she could get to work and continue her journey towards self-sufficiency. And so we listened to them and said, man, this sounds great. Let's give her a vehicle. We gave her a vehicle, very straightforward. 2 weeks later, what does she do with that vehicle but leaves and goes back to the foster family that had been so destructive to her? Because I guess she had always wanted that, but couldn't do that because she didn't have a vehicle to get there with her baby. And so she goes back, and it was heartbreaking to see, but that happened so often. And we look at that and realize that our good deed did not work out for the long-term success of that young mom and her baby. And that's heartbreaking to see. But here's the deal. If we did not ruthlessly measure success, we would have called it a success because we did the good thing. We gave away the car. Yay, us. Yeah. That looked like a good, successful moment, intervention, but it wasn't, because you have to go deeper. You have to look not at your feeling of having done good, but at the actual impact, the long-term transformative impact in the life of the person you're trying to help. I'll give you another example from my personal life. So outside of an organization, this is more relevant if you're just an individual person trying to help people in need. This one will resonate with everybody because we've all been there. I was walking down the street in Washington, D.C. I lived there about 25 years ago. I was in the Georgetown area. We're out for a night with my friends and roommates, and I was approached by a middle-aged man who looked desperate. And he told me that he desperately needed $20 for bus fare to get back home to his family. And he shared the whole story. I asked him, like, what bus are you taking? Where do you need to get? And he had all the details. And it seemed legitimate to me. And so I handed him a $20 bill. And then we went to dinner. And then I came out, it's like 2 hours later, I'm walking down a different street, and I see him again doing the same thing to someone else. And he actually saw me, I saw him, and I just remember this feeling of anger and dread. And I've had to process that over the years. And what I realized was, well, it was good what I did. And I can feel some sense of grace there that I did this thing trying to follow Jesus, trying to be a light to this man. But I learned from actually having that feedback loop, seeing, oh, it didn't have the success, that it didn't get him on a bus to go home because it was all a lie. I learned from that to think deeper and go deeper. And that shaped how I now intervene in those moments. Sometimes in those moments now, I'll be like, absolutely, let's go to the bus station, or let's go, I'll buy you a ticket. I often now, because I learned from that, because I had this feedback loop where I saw what was the actual impact in his life, I learned how I can do charitable work better. Let me provide the actual thing that you need, or let me connect you maybe with a ministry that provides this as part of a long-term assistance package. So I learned from it because it enabled me to go deeper. But the key, again, is if all I did was feel contentment that I did a good deed, it didn't actually have the positive impact in the life of someone I was trying to help. So, couple examples. This happens all the time. So, how do we actually know if the good thing that we're doing actually has the impact that we want, the result that we want, actually makes life better for the person we're trying to help? Well, again, the answer is in that question I asked at the beginning. How do we measure success? You are halfway to the victory if you just ask yourself that question, because it has a key word in the question. It's the verb, measure. You got to measure it. You got to measure it. You have to be somewhat ruthless and rigorous to go in and try to measure what was the actual impact in the life of the person, the family, the group, the country that I was trying to help. So we're committed to measurement, whether it's about a church or a charity or just my individual life. I want to measure. I want to have that feedback loop where I see, did my intervention actually have the impact that I hoped? Did it actually bring about good in that person's life? And so we're committed to measuring. And I mentioned the measurement actually at the beginning for OnRamp when I shared the mission. We gift these reliable vehicles to people to help them on the road to self-sufficiency. That's what we're trying to measure. That's the ultimate goal. Our goal is not cars. Giving away cars is not success. It's building self-sufficiency in the lives of the people we serve. That's what we care about. So you figure out, what do I ultimately care about? What is the real goal? Not giving away food. It's helping people not starve. It's helping people become healthy and whole. Whatever it is, you've got some long-term goal that's about the person you're helping, not your doing good work or what you're giving away. It's about them, not you. So you focus on that long-term goal for them, and then you figure out, how do I measure that? So Our long-term goal is our client's self-sufficiency, but that's like a impossible thing to measure. Self-sufficiency, what is that? It's not like we wear some kind of self-sufficiency number on our foreheads. So we have to kind of measure around it. We measure a number of variables that we can actually get data for that together you add them up and they give us a sense of what self-sufficiency looks like for the people that we serve. So for OnRamp, we're gonna always measure three financial things. We're gonna look at their total net worth or savings. We're going to look at their monthly net revenue coming from their wages and all other sources, and we're going to look at their credit score. So we're going to measure those things. We're going to measure educational attainment because that's so huge to their long-term self-sufficiency. And then we're going to measure a few things that are kind of subjective that the client reports. We're going to look at for them and for their kids, their physical health, their mental health, and their community engagement. And one of the keys is we're going to measure these things. So it's 7 total things that we're measuring. We're going to measure them before we give them a vehicle, and then at 6 months after getting the vehicle, and then at 12 months, and then at 24 months. So we're going to measure multiple times so that we can see, is their life actually improving through our intervention? Because that's what it's about. So go back to that young mom who took the vehicle and fled back to an abusive family situation. Was that success? Well, if we contented ourselves with just doing good, or if we took the simple, easy measurement and said success is just giving out cars. How many cars have you given out? Well, then it would have looked like a success, right? Because we did the good thing, yay us, and we gave away a car. That's +1 on number of cars donated. But was it actually a success? Well, not if you measure it from her perspective. No, it enabled her to do something that's going to harm her and her baby. And so that was painful. I don't want to. I don't want to dismiss that. Like, it was hard. I didn't want to measure that success because it was not success. But we're ruthless about that. We're rigorous because we want to maximize the good that we do. We think that God deserves that. Our community deserves that. The world deserves that. Like, don't waste your time. Serve the world in a way that matters, that has a true and lasting impact. So you look at that, and in our case, we measured that and we saw, no, it wasn't successful. And then this is the follow-up. You measure that success, and then you courageously make changes accordingly. So we developed a whole new policy for how we serve people coming out of a foster care or traumatic childhood situation. So if it's a person who's coming out of a trauma situation or a painful foster adoptive situation that hasn't gone well, and we realize that giving them transportation could enable them to do something that's actually harmful to them, then we're gonna have a whole profile around that. We actually changed it now where when we serve a charity like that that's providing foster care, housing, and ministry and love for these kids, we're actually going to donate the car to the charity instead of to the person, so that the charity can support them and they can stay there in the home where they're loved and cared for. So a whole change to our program came from measuring success and then courageously looking at the results, which in that case was not pleasant. Were not good results. But by doing that, we're having a greater good and a greater impact in the world. And that's what it's about. It's not about you. It's not about you feeling good about yourself. It's about you actually doing good in the world in a way that leads to long-term transformative impact on the people that you serve. That is true whether you are faith-based or not, whether you're a church or a secular NGO. You want to do good that actually matters and has a greater impact. So I encourage you to look for the ways that you can measure success in your individual life, in the charitable work that you're doing, or in your organization, church, or ministry, wherever it might be. And again, to go back to more the personal situation, like in your own life as you're trying to help people in need, one of the ways that you can do this, I see so often today, what it looks like to do good is you hear through maybe the school that your kids go to or your neighborhood, or just Facebook. You see a GoFundMe and there's a family that's experienced a tragedy. There's a person who is in incredible need because, I don't know, someone died or there's a health emergency or a job loss or a home burned down, whatever it might be. A lot of people are giving to those needs, and that's wonderful. But what I would encourage you to do is go further and check in on that person. I tend to only give when I know the connection personally so that I can follow up and know, did giving this money actually make a difference? Is there more help that's needed? Maybe it's not financial. Maybe this person needs a friend. Maybe they need someone to come alongside and care for them. Maybe they need other resources. Maybe they need to be connected to this organization that helps them. I always look for some way to measure that success, measure whether the intervention mattered, and then connect it to a longer term relationship so that I can stay connected and I can really ensure that whatever I'm giving, whether it's my time or my money, which I have a limited amount of, that it is making the greatest impact for good long term and the life of the person I'm trying to help. I encourage you to do the same. Don't take the easy way out of just like, hey, here's $10, go. No, invest like your life and your time and really try to measure success and then adjust accordingly. Be courageous to adjust accordingly so that you make sure that you are having that greatest impact for good. It's part of stewardship of the things that we have in life. How do I steward them? Well, I'm gonna be rigorous in measuring the success of the charitable work, the good deeds that I do to make sure that they're having an impact for good, that they're not harming people. Yeah, it'd just be so surprised to see how often attempts to do good do harm. So, but you can avoid that if you will be rigorous in measuring success and adjusting accordingly. So, I hope that this podcast will enable you to maximize the good that you're doing in your community, especially for the vulnerable, the hurting, the poor, the sick. I hope that it will enable you to go further, go deeper in the work that you do so that you will really lift people up in a way that transforms their trajectory in life for the rest of their lives. I hope we'll do greater good in the world. So this has been Blake Talks Good. I'm your host, Blake Jennings, and I'll see you next time. If you have a question that you would like covered on Blake Talks Good, you can email it to blakej@onramptx.org. Again, that's BLAKEJ at ONRAMPTX.org. We'd love to have your questions, whether they're about individually doing good or working at a nonprofit or ministering in a church, wherever you might be. If you want to maximize the good that you do in your community and have a question, please send it to us.